Felice Robertson. This is the Housing Committee. We're gonna get started. It is now 7:10. And who will be presenting is
Jacob Schneider with the East New York Community Land Trust. Maybe I'll provide slightly more background here. The East New York Community Land Trust, which I'll talk more about shortly, started in 2020. I served on the board from 2022 until just this past November. And then I joined the staff as the Senior Program Manager for Research and Policy. I have been studying, I'm also finishing my PhD. I have a couple of chapters left. And I've been studying CLTs for over a decade. And now have the privilege of doing this work all the time. So I'm here to kind of provide an introduction to community land trusts. I will focus a lot of what I'm doing on the work at East New York CLT, but I want to leave enough time for questions because this is, if you're unfamiliar with it, it's not really easy to wrap your head around sometimes. But I'll also just kind of touch on other things that I kind of know about them as we go through this. These slides were provided to me, so they're also not tailored to exactly how I would do this, so I'll kind of do my best, but we'll leave time for questions and I will be able to answer them. So I've introduced myself. The East New York Community Land Trust is a part of the New York City Community Land Initiative. And basically what nicely is a coalition of community land trusts and other organizations that support the work, such as technical service providers, that work to further the goals of collective ownership of land and using that land for purposes that serve the benefit of the community. In many cases, this is affordable housing, but it can also be commercial buildings, it can be park space, nicely started in 2012. It grew out of a movement of unhoused folks, picture the homeless, that basically was doing research to try and understand how they could figure out what policies and tools they could use to have housing instead of being homeless. And one of their first initiatives, or one of their biggest initiatives, was actually counting the vacant property in much of the city. And from their research, done in collaboration with students at Hunter and other community members, is they found that there was enough housing vacant to house all the folks without homes that needed it. They started focusing their attention on community land trusts as a way to deliver deeply affordable housing that would be democratically controlled by community members and the residents that lived in the housing. Does everyone, we do a round of introductions?
I would like to do that.
That would be great.
I apologize. So I introduced myself as Felice Robertson, the second vice chair of the community board. And we have,
I am Diane Shepherd, and I am a community resident, but I've been on the board for quite some time, long time. And I do live in the community of Crown Heights. I've been living in the community of Crown Heights for 34 years. So I've seen a lot of changes. I know that I can bring something to the board, want to bring something to the board, and that's why I'm here. And it's so wonderful to see everyone here, knowing that everyone have an interest in this community. That's a beautiful thing.
My name is Mark Mann. I am also a long-term resident of the community, 25 plus, and I am a resident member.
Hey, I'm Drew Johnston. I'm on the housing committee, and I also live in Crown Heights. I've lived here for 8 years.
hey ma'am, can you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, I'm Vanya Ayers. I'm a board member. I've been in the community for a long time, over 5 years.
And can you please have a seat with me,
Sure.
please? Anyone else on the board? Want to get started? Can you sit over here, please?
It's a little tight right next to you.
I will move over for you.
Are you chairing?
Take a seat at the table, Miss Mary.
You know that you said just for you.
Oh, thank you.
You signed in, yes?
I'll sign it out.
Oh, you gotta get a co-chair, man. It's what I remember.
Sign in and introduce yourself.
Good evening, my name is Renisha Lavari, member of Community Board 9, also member of the Housing Committee, and lifelong resident of Community Board 9.
And thank you for that.
So, before we get into how CLTs are structured, we'll kind of talk about the purpose of CLTs. And so, basically, what CLTs are is a way to remove land from the speculative housing market. And so, the idea in a place like New York City, I heard you talking about it earlier, the rent is just going up, the prices are just going up, right? And besides finance, real estate is New York, right? And so it becomes eminently difficult to, deliver affordable housing, and affordable housing that community members and residents actually have control over, that they can make decisions about. And so the idea of a community land trust is that organized residents of a community can form a community land trust and over time, build the organization to hold land in trust while residents of the buildings or the commercial spaces or users of a park, have full rights and access. But what can never happen in a community land trust structure, which we'll talk more about, is the land can never just be sold on the market. Hypothetically, it could be, but typically the structure of the board, in the interest of all the members, kind of prevent that from occurring. It's really a commitment to land being held by the people that use it and the people making decisions about how it's being used, as opposed to kind of the predominant model in the US and elsewhere, where if you own it, you have significant control over what happens with it, even if it impacts the community members around you. Now, of course, there's zoning that prevents certain uses from occurring, but privately owned properties can often have new developments put on them that are much more expensive than the ones that existed there, and things like that. And CLTs, basically try to stem that. In the most basic sense, it's a nonprofit organization. There are no for-profit community land trusts that collectively own and then stewards the land for a community, right? So it takes care of it, it oversees it, it takes responsibility for it. The way this is achieved, and this is really kind of getting into some of the nuts and bolts of it, is that what happens is the CLT owns the land beneath whatever buildings, or if there aren't buildings, gardens. In New York City, there are a lot of community gardens actually on community land trust land. And you separate the ownership of those two. So the community, a CLT may have 15 properties, but they actually own the land under all 15 and collectively manage that in the interest of community members. And then through what is called a ground lease, which is basically often a very thick legal document, the tenants or the cooperative owners of a building, or it could even be a single family home, that's actually one of the most common arrangements in the US, but not in New York City because we don't have a lot of single family homes, is that the residents own the building. So in East New York CLT, in 2024, we acquired our first property. It was a 20-unit rent stabilized building. And one of our members had been living there for years, and it had flipped through different LLCs. It was not taken care of. The building was falling apart, and the owners lived, somewhere up in Westchester County, had never seen the building, and did not take care of it. Basically, we worked with the tenants to purchase the property, and technically we still own the land and the buildings, but we're in kind of about a 3 to 4 year process, where what'll happen is after we fully renovate the building, we successfully raised a fairly large sum of money from elected officials to completely rehabilitate and upgrade the building because it hasn't been taken care of for decades. Once that conversion happens, or once the rehabilitation happens, then the tenants will basically they will convert to owners of their cooperative units. So, and these are folks, it's a rent stabilized building. Some folks have been living there for so long, in New York City, there would be no other way for them to have ownership of their own home. The other piece of it is, given the conditions in New York City, they would even have a hard time just having a decent place to live, which is why they wanted to do something about it. And they thought the CLT was the best way for them to have housing stability, but also be able to build a little equity in their future, through owning that home. And so the ground lease is basically, a lot of legalese, but it's a lot of responsibilities and rights of the CLT to the residents, but the residents to the CLT. Within that, in one of the ways, besides removing the land from the speculative market, one of the ways that we ensure it remains permanently affordable is every ground lease basically has what is called a resale formula. And what this does is it basically spells out the amount of equity that is shared between the owner of the building, in the case of our property, it would be the shareholder, the cooperative shareholder, and the CLT as a representative of the community. What it does is it limits the ability prices can rise. So it would be impossible for someone to buy a CLT home and sell it at market price. And so that's where some of the criticisms of the CLT come from, because they limit the equity you could build. But the other, one of the big things about it is that it gives opportunities for stability and affordable home ownership. They're not all, home ownership. They can also be mutual housing associations. But the commitment is, even unlike some other types of, affordable housing owned by like nonprofit developers or CDCs, is that the commitment is always to maintain affordability, but also do everything in your power to keep people in their homes even when they experience challenges. And so one of the things we work on as we're planning to convert the cooperative owners to, convert the tenants to cooperative owners, is making sure we have a significant reserve so that when people experience job loss or problems, that we have a way for them to stay in their homes and weather difficult periods. And so the basics of a CLT is that they're democratically governed. And what we mean by this is that it has a board, and it has 3 different parts. Folks who live in CLT homes, or if it's not just homes, users of the commercial spaces or whatever interest you have in using what's on the land. General community members who live in the area where the CLT works. And so for us, that is Brooklyn Community Board 5, East New York, we just use that for shorthand, and Community Board 16, Brownsville. And then there's another set of advisors, or like just the general public, that aligns with the mission of the CLT, but also can further its work. And so that's where I came in at the East New York CLT, is I don't live in East New York, but because of my experience with CLTs and research and things that were useful to what we were trying to do, I was on the board for a while. Another key part is that they're by and for the community. So they're very much member-led. In our CLT, and not all are structured this way, if we, basically members make decisions about the trajectory of the organization, not just the board who is elected by the members. So all board members are elected, but they don't, just because they're on the board, make all of the decisions for the organization. So when we decide we want to purchase a building or change our acquisition strategy, you know, the kind of properties we're looking for. In the beginning, when we first started, we thought we were going to get vacant land from the city because East New York and Brownsville have a significant amount of vacant property, that we were going to basically be able to get housing or get land, build housing on it, and keep that permanently affordable. Well, what we found out is that it was going to take years before HPD was actually going to release any city-owned land because of the amount of affordable housing development they had subsidized previously. So with our members, we thought for some time about what we could do. And we realized that as an anti-displacement and an anti-real estate speculation organization, that one of the best things we could do is buy buildings where tenants were at risk of being displaced, and remove that from the speculative market. So that goes to, you know, working with one of our members and her neighbors to purchase their building. And then, you know, one of the key things is it's very flexible. One of the ways I like to think about a CLT is it's kind of a vessel. So you can focus on preserving commercial property or just gardens. You can do all of those things, right? So we realized that after acquiring our building and working on our next purchases, and as our membership grew, so we're a dues-paying membership organization, which not all CLTs are, but we charge, we ask for a small monthly membership fee, but no one is ever denied membership because they can't afford it. I lost my train of thought. I'm so sorry. What did we do? Huh? Oh yeah. Well,
Like, what is the membership fee?
oh yeah, I was saying that CLTs are a vessel. They can be structured different ways. So we have a membership model that basically, you know, puts decision making in the hands of members, but you know, they can be used. You know, we are focused on providing tenants the opportunity to become cooperative homeowners. Other CLTs in New York City, such as the oldest, Cooper Square, which was founded in 1991, they're a mutual housing association. So they provide what is very similar to rental options, except, you know, the association is a democratically governed entity. So you can accommodate different kinds of housing structures that work for your community on the space. You just, you know, you have to think about what your community needs, talk to the community, and kind of put it together in ways that work for them. But the basic, you know, separation of the land in the buildings is, you know, kind of the one piece that holds through most CLTs. Briefly, the history of CLTs, it's basically the idea that we steward the land, right? And so right now, we're on land that was, you know, violently stolen from the Lenni Lenape.
Violently stolen from.
The Lenni Lenape, the indigenous peoples that occupied the land before colonization. And the idea, you know, one of the ways to think about what CLTs do is they try to care for the land and the people the way that you know, indigenous folks did, right? Respecting the land, understanding that there's only so much of it and that it's not to be something extracted from, right? It's you know, I like to think of it as almost just respecting not just land, but the people that use the land, and ensuring everyone has the right to benefit from it. The first CLT, so CLTs are not very old. The first one was founded outside of Albany, Georgia, in the late 1960s, and it was a response to basically civil, you know, sharecroppers and civil rights activists, you know, pressing for the right to vote. What happened is because many folks in the area were sharecroppers, that they were basically kicked off the land for registering to vote. And so they decided that they needed a way to sustain themselves, but not within the confines of traditional property ownership in the South. And so what they were able to do is purchase thousands of acres of land that was collectively owned and used, they never really built much housing on the land, but it was used for agricultural production. That was the first, and then they've grown since then. And really in the 1980s is when we saw them this idea come to cities. One of the earlier most successful urban CLTs is the Dudley Street, or Dudley Neighbors Incorporated, in the Roxbury part of Boston. Now we count more than 300 CLTs around the country. And then in New York City, the first, as I mentioned before, was Cooper Square on the Lower East Side. And now we have more than 20 CLTs in some stage of growth in New York City. Some are just forming, figuring out their bylaws, figuring out, what they want to do for their community. Others, like us, have acquired land, and others, like Cooper Square, East Harlem, El Barrio CLT, have acquired, multiple properties and provide, dozens, if not hundreds of permanently affordable units. So here's kind of the map of the emerging CLTs.
Wait,
Oh, sorry.
that was a lot.
Sorry. Yeah, so this is kind of the 20. So while we have members and we don't own anything in Brownsville, but we, work in Brownsville as well. There's also a Brownsville CLT. I think this is Brooklyn Level Up.
So it's only one in Brooklyn?
No, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 4 right now. 4 in Queens, and then you have, Cooper Square on the Lower East Side, Rain, Chinatown CLT.
What is the one down furthest?
Here,
Yeah.
that's the real Edgemere CLT in the Rockaways, and they successfully won a request for proposals from HPD for 100 and some lots a few years ago, and they're in the process of working to develop some of those lots. Some of them will remain community gardens and other public spaces. But yeah, yes.
Are we entitled to ask questions or you prefer to go through?
I think you can ask questions as I go.
Okay.
If there's something I'm going to answer later, I'll get to that.
Can you just
is that
tell
good?
me the name of it one more time?
Oh, Real, REAL, and then space Edgemere, CLT.
Okay, so your chairperson is here.
Good evening, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Apologies.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. I have a few questions though.
Is it okay if I move on?
Yes, I have one question.
Oh, yeah,
Is
please.
this considered I heard you say co-op. So is this like not a condominium, but a co-op kind of investment?
Yeah, so CLT, so basically, kind of just backing up, and CLTs are basically kind of an ownership structure, right? And so the land is held in trust and owned technically by the nonprofit organization, and then there's a legal agreement, the ground lease, with whatever's on the land.
Okay, so if you're rent stabilized, because I hear you said rent stabilized,
Yes.
how about rent control? Does that impact that too?
I mean, it could, but basically, there aren't many rent controlled units left, right? Rent stabilized for sure, but yeah, but I mean, foreseeably, you could purchase a rent controlled building. The logistics of that might be a bit more difficult in terms of how you deal with that like constrained rent structure, but
With DHCR?
yeah.
That's
So
what I was
like,
asking.
so that in most cases,
DHCR is Division of
Housing.
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 Community.
Okay, I'm sorry. So you're saying rent controlled property, because you have a lot of pre-war buildings that some of these centers kind of, they pass on. That's why I was asking you. This is a great idea, because, it does become unaffordable. And by doing this it will allow people not to get removed from their homes?
Yeah, so and again, I think this comes back to the idea of a vessel. So depending on what you're trying to do, there are going to be complexities with each of these, right? Just this basic structure is kind of, you know, separating the land and the improvements is complicated in and of itself just to understand. But once you start working with, you know, city rent regulations and so on and so forth, it can add another layer.
Okay.
But you know, so one of the, you know, so the building we're working with is not controlled, it's just a, you know, it's a rent stabilized building. But in order for it to convert to cooperative,
Yes.
you need 80% of the tenants voting in favor for the cooperative conversion. So like, you know, there's like layers of, so that, I guess I'm just trying to illustrate an example that there are different kind of things you have to figure out depending on what property or what strategy you're using.
Okay.
If you're getting vacant land and building new, that's in a sense, like in one way that would be a little clearer, right? Because I'm a CLT, we are either buying this piece of land or we want to get it from the city, and then we'll develop it and we'll make sure it's permanently affordable forever, basically. So, you know, there are different, you know, it's, I can't like explain every piece because one, I have no clue. You know, just to be honest, right? Because there are so many different things you can do with this. But the general idea is that if you want to use a CLT for something, you can probably figure out a way to do it. In New York State, you can't do condos though. In most other states, that actually happens. There are condos on CLT land. But that is like, that would need to be changed at the state level. But the other thing is that Nicely as an organization does a fair amount of policy advocacy and development. And so that has come up in conversation, but we're not really actively working on it. But, you know, so you're constrained by state, you know, again, this is
kind of fairly new, what's happening here.
it is. It's really, you know, we were the first CLT in New York City, New York City, not New York State, to acquire property privately.
Okay.
So we bought, you know, we were the only CLT in New York City that hasn't actually used public land or public buildings for our housing. So.
And this gentleman had a question?
Oh, I'm so sorry.
This gentleman and then you, this gentleman first, please?
Yeah, I had a question that you kind of touched on, but I know the city's like really protective of like rent stabilized housing because like, you know, they're not building that much more of it, it's being chipped away at.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you were able to convert from rent stabilized housing to
We're in the process of
working to convert from
Yes.
like rent stabilized housing to co-op ownership. Did the city give you a hard time about that?
No, not really. Because, I mean, I think one of the key things is that, you know, we are preserving units, we're not displacing people. And, you know, the landscape can always change, right? The landscape of rent regulation changed in 2019, you know, more protections for tenants. Prior to that wasn't the case, right? You could remove buildings from stabilization. Yes.
Yeah, you can remove buildings?
At that time.
At that time,
You can still do units, sorry, but you can do IAIs,
They can
individual
be
apartment
stabilized.
It's
improvements.
a little more
I got it.
difficult now.
Yeah, well, there's like a set amount and you can only invest so much in the IAIs, but they actually increased that amount. It was like, I think like 15,000 or something.
But I thought that, and I'm only bringing something up front, I'm sorry, I know you have a question. I thought that when they had that pandemic, you had slumlords going crazy and gutting and rehabbing, and by doing so, they felt that they got a majority of the apartments that they can destabilize, right? But then a stop was put on it. So this is why this is confusing to me that what you're saying is permissible, that you can remove and stabilize.
Yeah, but we're going through the pathway that the city, you know, the ability to convert, you know, to purchase the building and convert it to this is it's not unprecedented. But I mean, it is, you know, to think of, we are removing basically, you know, in a way, affordable rental units. But we're providing, you know, basically homes that are even kind of sheltered from rent regulation changes, right? So going forward, you know, this will always be permanently affordable housing. So I think it's, you know, I think within, I can't claim to know exactly the city's logic, but this is something that they're not opposed to as long as you meet the criteria of tenants being
So
happy
my other
about that.
question, I'm sorry, I don't mean, so you said city, so DACR is the state. So, will you be affiliated with the state or any regulations or, you know, things of that nature?
No, not really.
That's-
So like
I see.
our agreements, you know, so our project, once it converts to cooperative ownership, will be subject to a regulatory agreement with HPD, right? Which basically is the city's way. I mean, the regulatory agreement has a lot of terms. The whole idea is that it keeps properties affordable. And what they do is the money, like one of the ways it can happen is, so the money we raised from, you know, Brooklyn Borough President Reynoso, our council members, Congresswoman Nydia Velasquez, is when that money comes in, when the city money comes in, what HPD does is they just don't pass it on to us and say, you know, here's the subsidies to redo the building. They say, here's the subsidies to do the building. We're actually going to treat these as loans, basically, that you don't have to pay. But what happens is we're going to sign an agreement for 30 years that says you have to keep this affordable. And if after 30 years you decide that you don't want it to be affordable anymore, well, because you have this big loan, you have this ginormous payment at the end. So what we would basically do is refinance that into a new agreement to extend affordability. Since we're committed to permanent affordability, that doesn't matter to us. But a lot of, you know, affordable housing providers actually provide affordable housing. They have been doing this for decades. They provide affordable housing in neighborhoods where they think the prices are going to rise. And then after 30 years, they say, you know what? That balloon payment isn't so big anymore because we could sell this for so much. And then it goes, then they are no longer subject to the terms in the affordability requirements, but they can then convert what was once affordable housing to market rate housing that displaces people. And this is, you know, one of the things that we're trying to address in our work in CLTs around the city is that we need actually folks and community members that are committed to permanent affordability, not let's hope after 30 years this building will still be affordable.
It would be good to have a list of all of these.
I can probably share that.
And this young lady.
And we actually have an interactive map. I can follow up with an email.
If you send it to the
Share.
board,
Okay.
if you can send it to the board.
Is that just copy
Info,
everyone on the email?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's Dante and Mina,
Thank
we're all
you.
on it, yeah. You can send it to that email chain.
Please send it to me.
Yes, sorry, I just need to make notes so I don't forget things.
You do.
It would be very interesting to read.
I can
I
also
want-
email you, I can also email a reminder to you.
Oh, can you do that?
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah,
I'll send you a
just
follow-up
email
and
me
thank you.
whatever I need
Yeah.
to provide and I'll.
I got you, don't worry.
Okay.
Okay, so one of the things I realize is that this is probably a whole lot more than what I'm going to be hearing because I can do questions, but I do have a question. Where's the funding coming from for your agency? Is that the land trust? Is that has nothing to do with the city of New York? I mean, are your, where's the funding coming from?
Yeah,
That way.
so, okay, so, I'll explain this, I'll explain a couple of different things with this. So the funding to run our organization, because we're a nonprofit organization like, you know, CDC, like Bridge Street, like other groups, what we do is, at the moment, and probably for a long time, we raise, you know, foundation funding to run our operations.
Grants and stuff?
Yeah, So it's grant funding. The city provides a small pot of money through the city council CLT initiative program that, you know, I think the past few years it's been about $1.5 million to be distributed between most of the 20 and growing CLTs in the city. They help us sustain our operations. And then when you do a project, there's a developer's fee involved. And so CLTs around the country and in New York will sometimes take part of that to make sure the organization can run. In other instances, they might be able just to give that back to the project and keep the affordability levels down. But so to run the organization, and you know, pay for staff and things like that, it's mostly grant funding. We get some city money, and you can get you get a very small amount of money when you have land in trust. So that ground lease comes with a ground lease fee. In most places around the country, it's just a nominal sum. It's like $50, and it'll probably be very similar for New York City. So that doesn't really provide much to the organization. But that's how that works to kind of keep the organization moving. To acquire property, you can tap into, and this is all contingent upon the type of housing you're providing, right? So if you're out in southeastern Queens and you're doing like single family homes or something, there's probably some money for, affordable home ownership. There's money for cooperative development at the state level. HPD has numerous programs to upgrade buildings that haven't been taken care of to preserve affordable housing, basically. And so a lot of the funding in most CLTs, besides us, in the city and New York State, basically access public money for affordable housing development, or, there's not much for like with the commercial property we're acquiring, we want to make sure that there's affordable commercial spaces for nonprofit organizations and like worker cooperatives and small businesses. There's not much funding for that, so we just have to kind of figure that out. But for the housing bit, you usually tap into state and city programs already. What we did, because the city is a little difficult to work with and they're fairly slow. And we were trying to preserve a building that people were living in that could have been sold to another, faceless LLC. Is that we actually privately fundraised for more than half of the price of the building. So it was about $3 million. We fundraised about $1 million in donations, about maybe $500,000 in low-cost loans of 3% or less, because our mission was to keep it affordable. And yeah, so the money comes from wherever you can get it, is one way to think about it. But there are, a set of programs to support preserving affordable housing, when you're buying existing housing, or if you're building new, there's funding attached to that.
So you're buying the property from the city? Is that where the buildings that you're speaking about?
Yeah.
That's coming from the city?
Where
the buildings?
We didn't buy the building from the city, and maybe the next slide would be good for this too. But basically, I can answer this here, and then we can follow up. But you can buy property from private owners, which is what we did.
Private?
Yeah. So it was owned by investors, and so what we did was found the investors, got them to talk to us, and said, "Hey, look, you're not taking care of this building. The tenants, they want to actually become owners of the building. We want to help them do it." And so we negotiated with them, over the course of a year or something. It was less than a year, but it's pretty extensive negotiations.
So you're working in conjunction with them, or you're buying the property?
We're buying it from
You're
the
buying it
owners, but
from
we're
the
working with the tenants.
Right. Okay, and then I also heard you say that it can be co-op, and if so, you would not be able to sell, the person who owns the co-op would not be able to sell, or she is in the co-op, would not be able to sell for market. So is it Mitchell-Lama or what?
I mean, it can be thought of similar to that, but it's not. It's CLT, so it can be thought of like a similar program like that. But basically, instead of it being kind of a state, like a program developed by the state, it's basically what we do as an organization is we say we want to convert, tenants who are interested in owning their properties, we want to work with you to buy your buildings, convert it to cooperative ownership, but it will be permanently affordable. So you can leave it to your children, you can leave it to, any heirs, things like that. If you decide to sell, you'll, each year you live there, say you'll make 2% on what you invested. And so if you stay for 20 years, you'll have a little nest egg. And it won't be, the same as you'd get in, the market, right? But the other thing is, when your house goes up that much in the market, in a community where people's incomes don't go up as much as the property values, which is a lot of, black and brown neighborhoods in Brooklyn and Queens and the Bronx, then you gotta go, then someone else comes in that can afford it, that isn't, the people that live there, basically. And so the idea is you do restrict the amount that people can take out of the property, but it's a commitment to the community, not just the people that live there today, but for generations.
So who sells it? The land, the land trust can sell, right? If say someone comes out of the co-op,
Mhm.
right? It sells back to the land trust.
The land
Yes.
trust could
Then
technically purchase it.
what can the land trust sell for? Can they sell for the market rate?
No, no.
Okay.
So it's no. That is so like the whole idea is that through the governance structure, but then also the ground lease agreement that governs the relationship between the CLT and the co-op, you have like these multiple layers
Okay.
to make sure, that it doesn't go to market price. And one of the, I think one of the lessons where that kind of thinking came from too was seeing what happened with a lot of the HDFC co-ops that formed, in the 80s and 90s, that once the 2000s hit, some of them, all the residents were like, let's get out of here, we got this for next to nothing, this building's worth 25 million and there's only 24 units, like we're set, like let's retire. Which is great for them, right? And they dealt with a lot living in those buildings for that many years. But CLTs essentially have a commitment, not just for today or the people that live there now, but for the community in perpetually, in perpetuity, into the future. And our goal, which is I think similar to a lot of CLTs, is to make sure people don't get displaced, right? And we don't want, islands of new people with just little pockets. So we also work on policy issues and do other things that try to keep people in their homes. Another way CLT can get land is what we tried in the beginning and decided at that moment, it was going to take too long, is you can organize and pressure the government to transfer public property. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I know that with the case of Cooper Square, they started around 1959, and it wasn't until 1991 that they, finalized the process of becoming a CLT.
Yes.
So on one hand, is that the typical process in New York City for CLTs to go through the complete process? And two, in that time, are the individual unit owners still accruing that 2% interest in those years, or it doesn't start until the entire process?
Yeah, so I'll answer the last question first, is so like what you accrue in equity doesn't start until there's a ground lease agreement. So that, now the 30 years of Cooper Square, that is not the typical timeline any longer. So, a lot of folks, some of the folks who were actually involved in that for many years have been strong advocates and members of the New York City Community Land Initiative, other efforts to have CLTs kind of become more accessible in mainstream. And so, you know, it's hard to say an exact timeline, right? I think nationally it's somewhere between 7 to 10 years between a group of, you know, whatever, 15 or 10 people in their community saying we should form a land trust, to incorporating, getting your bylaws done, getting your board together, setting everything in place, maybe getting a staff person, and then starting your first acquisition, and then finally getting it. You know, it's something like 7 to 10 years, because a lot of the times the first few years of a CLT is just figuring out what the issues are. Like, what do we really want to address and focus on? What can we do, given, you know, what's happening in our case in New York City, right? Like, what's the environment like to do this? We were a bit impatient, right? We didn't want to wait 7 years for the city to finally say, oh, we're gonna get rid of this lot, and then you can put a request for proposal in, and maybe you'll get it. You know, so we decided that we had to change strategy and figure out how to do it. You know, East Harlem El Barrio CLT now is, I think they're working on their 4th or 5th property. And they basically got theirs, you know, I think from kind of beginning to end, that might have been close to a decade. From like kind of the foundings of Picture the Homeless until they got their, actually it was a little less than that, but you know, so, but the Bronx CLT, they, I think, got a property probably within less than 5 years. So, you know, it varies, and it varies by just, you know, who's involved in the organization, like what, like in New York City, like what do your council members think about it? You know, we had to educate a lot of council members. We were fortunate, you know, we had Charles Barron for a bit, in Sandy Nurse, who both were kind of familiar and advocates of collective ownership of land. So it was a little easier to get support. It would probably be much harder in places, you know, where folks are more skeptical of kind of collective, you know, ideas in general, but, you know, collective ownership of property.
I heard you say also about property, one family homes. How many of those do you have, and where do you get that from? I mean, do you get that through foreclosures, or where does that come from? In New York City, we have none, right? And I don't think there are any single family. There might be 1 or 2 single family homes in all of New York City, and they would probably be held by the one and only citywide CLT, which is called Interborough, which is like a project of you have Habitat for Humanity and stuff. But generally speaking, this comes to the next point. So you can intervene in private or tax debt and prevent foreclosures. So some CLTs, I'm not sure if it's happened in New York City. I think Interborough, you know, those 1 or 2 single family homes might have actually been related to some mortgage debt. But across the country, where, you know, New York City is kind of unique in the fact that we don't have a lot of single family homes. A lot of CLTs, ones that I've worked with, like in Minnesota, in Portland, they actually did acquire a lot of properties after the foreclosure crisis. Because the cities were sitting with properties that no one wanted to buy, and the banks just kind of owned them because they couldn't sell them at the foreclosure auctions. So basically what the city did is worked with a community land trust to basically get these properties from the bank through tax foreclosure, and then convert them to permanently affordable single family homes. But that's really like the exception in New York at the moment. It doesn't need to necessarily be that way, but you know, there's just not a lot of single family homes here, I think is the thing. Oh, excuse me. But you can do it with single family homes. Thank you.
You're welcome. And, you know, there's also the possibility to use eminent domain, right? So to basically ask the city to basically condemn and take land that isn't being used for the benefit, for the public benefit, and place that into a community land trust. That, to my knowledge, has not happened in New York City. We use eminent domain to tear communities apart historically, not to build them. But that is, you know, a legal tool that could be used, although I think it hasn't. So those are kind of, you know, the main way CLTs across the country and in New York get either buildings or land is from, you know, public land or public property. So properties that have, you know, been foreclosed on and taken over by the city.
I'm just wondering about, you know, we've done a lot of work with the lien issues. If it's possible to get the property through the liens.
COPA.
So I will, if there's, yes, that is, there are a couple of ways to do it,
'Cause
right?
that's a tricky business, you know, that's very.
Yeah, so let's say, so hypothetically, you could do that, maybe through working with the owner, so the owner says, I wanna stay in my home, I can't afford to stay, I don't wanna sell, but I owe $100,000 and there's no way I could ever pay it, I don't have children, you know, like I'm either out of my community, and in a retirement home, or I have to figure something out. In Minneapolis, they had folks that were in those situations, and they also needed their homes to be, you know, fixed up because they were aging and they hadn't really had the chance to take care of the home, but also it wasn't set up for being an older adult. And so the CLT in Minneapolis developed a program that basically said, you know, we can help take care of your mortgage and or tax debt. If you're willing to put the land and, you know, put the land in the CLT and you can stay in your home forever and leave it to your heirs or whatever you want. But we can help you with those things if you agree to make your home permanently affordable. And some people thought that was the best option for them. That hasn't been done here, I think.
And that seems like it could be a good option for some people, you know, that.
It could be, and at the
Better
end,
than
I'll
having
talk.
the reverse mortgages and the deed theft and the manipulation that's going on now.
I'll talk if there's time about the lien sale at the end, because there are some developments that might be useful there. So I'm not going to talk about Cooper Square, I'm not going, it's just because, I'm not gonna talk about those organizations because they can tell their story better. And I guess I've talked pretty extensively about like what we've done and our acquisition of the building, 248 Arlington. But just a little bit about how we formed. And so some folks may know that in 2016, a significant portion of East New York was rezoned, and it set off a wave of speculation into the neighborhood. Lots of investors came in and started buying homes. They tried to get them for whatever the lowest price possible, sometimes using scare tactics, but often they just bought, you know, buildings, whatever they were worth in 2015 or 2016, with the hopes that prices would rise and basically they'd become much more valuable and then they could offload them later. So that happened, and there was, you know, a fair amount of displacement and speculation and scheming. You know, there were deed thefts and other scams, and then COVID hit. And so basically, when you had like this escalating land value problem that was threatening the ability for people to stay in New York, with COVID, folks were really, really scared that they were going to, this was going to be another crisis that displaced, you know, more East New Yorkers. So they decided to form a CLT, and it was out of that. And in that time, we started. I didn't join until about 6 months after they formed. They really kind of formalized in right before the pandemic hit. They had a meeting. A public meeting that folks came to, and then the next meeting was on Zoom because the pandemic hit and everything had changed. But We have basically grown. We started, looking at public vacant land, and we had a participatory research project that documented the conditions of all the city-owned vacant lots in East New York. And it was one thing we could do kind of, during the pandemic, be outside with masks and look at property, and one way we could kind of understand what's going on in the neighborhood, but also think of, identify lots that we could potentially ask the city, to transfer to us so that we could develop affordable housing. And then I told, that was not going to be a fruitful path on our timeline, so we transitioned to the private market acquisition strategy. And now, we have a building, we're working on our next commercial building, and we actively organize tenants. So we have a tenant organizer on staff who basically goes building to building every week, works with tenants to help form a tenant union, and discuss the opportunity and the potential of their interest in, collectively owning their buildings. Sometimes, actually more often than not, once you form a tenant union and you start getting repairs, you don't necessarily need to become an owner of your property. And so that's what, what we found. But there still are some that are very interested in it. So, our work is really about tenant organizing and helping tenants become owners of their properties. We also do community planning initiatives. We're working with residents of the Jewel Streets, which is an area of East New York that is not connected to the city sewer system, and it's actually like 10 feet below grade. And even when you get a little bit of rain, it floods drastically. So we're working through the Justice for the Jewel Streets Coalition to make sure that they get what they need from the city. And then, the other pillar we use to further not just our own work, but the work of other CLTs and other folks just impacted by real estate speculation is we do a fair amount of policy advocacy at the city and state level. And the lien sale is one of the things we've been working on. So here's our 20-unit building. I mean, it says 21 tenant, but there's a basement unit that's really a super unit, so that will not be one of the units. But this is the building that we worked with the tenants to purchase, and are in the process of planning. We have the blueprints and everything else. So that's kind of the overview of CLTs. I realize I've gone over, so but we've gotten some questions in, so I don't know, I should probably button up. But I could also talk a little bit about the lien sale stuff if people are interested.
Oh, the COPA is what you were talking about?
Yeah, Copa is
sorry.
the one I was talking
With
about.
the T?
Is that
Oh,
another question?
Yeah.
I see.
I can read, it's okay. I just had I'm getting a very clear idea of who you're representing tenants. So it's a two-part question. Tenants are the people who like you, who don't like you. Who are the people who don't like you?
Yeah, so basically landlords
Uh-huh.
and bad landlords don't like us, especially.
What about NYCHA then?
Huh?
What about NYCHA? New
Yeah.
York City is the worst landlord.
Yes.
So are you helping those tenants also?
No.
Oh, okay.
I mean, we're not actively working with them to convert their building to a CLT, right? Because it's already owned by the city. We support tenants or, NYCHA tenants that are support in the sense that we're on their side. We're not, we are a small organization and, we count a number of NYCHA residents as members, and like our founding members. 2 or 3 of them are NYCHA residents. But we kind of support tenants who are looking to preserve Section 9 and not go into this kind of private model that transfers kind of control of their living conditions to, investors, basically. But our piece is, really trying to, keep folks in the community that, aren't in NYCHA,
Can I
Yeah,
follow that
but like we
follow-up
can't,
question?
I guess we can't do everything, and so
Yeah.
like our piece is like trying to figure this out, you
Okay.
know? And remember lead, so this is where, you know, the people that have found the organization have decided to focus their energy.
So my follow-up, I'm sorry, I know you have a follow-up.
I do. I
NYCHA
don't
is
wanna get
selling
too far away.
privately
Taxes,
to
taxes,
private
taxes.
owners and investors.
Yep.
So why not convert it to a CLT if they're selling it already?
Yeah, no, that would be, I mean, like in the abstract, that's like a great idea, right? But what those, you know, those investors that are doing this are coming with hundreds or tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars. We were able to raise 3, and it was a slog. But there's no, and I mean, I think, and to be perfectly honest, is we don't have the expertise or capacity to do the kind of things that need to be done on NYCHA properties and maximize what can happen there. You know what I'm saying? Like, so, I mean, in 20 years, when we're, you know, we've preserved everything in East New York except NYCHA, like, maybe we could figure that out.
Yeah.
But, you know, at the moment, like, that would, you know, even if we had a 100-unit building, that might be too much for us, right? Because we're building, you know, we're building from the ground up, right? And we're not just, you know, an affordable housing developer that's just like, oh, we're gonna start doing CLTs. You know, it was, people wanted this to happen, and so what we're trying to do is, you know, figure out how to do it, but also figure what needs to change for us to be able to do it more. So we're really building kind of a movement around this.
Yeah, you almost
we're
need
part
your
of the
own
movement,
bank
you
to
know?
do it. You really need your own bank, right? Like
That's another whole entity to go into banking also.
Yeah, so, but that's not, yeah, so that's where we're at. But yes, landlords don't
If you guys
like
don't have
us.
time, I can follow up with you through any other portal and email, so it's not a biggie.
I mean,
The only question that I had that has not been discussed, and I think it touches to Drew's first question, which I was surprised by your answer, is how does your mission and your movement intersect the taxes? Property taxes, how the city makes revenue off of property and land ownership. So as this mission moves forward and we keep affordability into perpetuity, I would assume that is not raising a lot of money for the city. And services and amenities come with revenue, so how does that isolate parts of your movement if you don't have development, which typically are hand in hand with, you know, bike lanes, traffic lights, things that people want in their affordable community. So I was just wanted you to touch that, how that intersects with how New York City pays for things.
right, so, I mean, you know, one of the things New York City does to promote affordable housing development, right, so that some people can afford to stay here, is they provide, you know, tax abatements for HDFCs.
But they have limitations, abatements have timelines. Do they not? Am I wrong?
Well, they're typically tied to a regulatory agreement that grants you the Article 11 exemption.
Okay.
And so, you know, CLTs and other HDFCs get what is an Article 11 exemption. So we're not like J51s or, you know, the other abatements that go to, you know, for-profit developers, to, you know, provide some affordable housing.
Understood.
And so, you know, one way of thinking about it is it's literally kind of this negotiation between the public interest in allowing people who may not be able to afford the market rates to stay in the city, and this has been something that, you know, predates CLTs, right? So there's that part of it. The other thing that we work on, so we've been working on the tax lien sale issue for many years, and as part of that work, you know, our first goal was basically to get it abolished, and get the groundwork for a replacement system in place, which we successfully did with a coalition across the city. Now, one of the things we're kind of turning to as part of that is actually, you know, reforming our tax systems. You know, like the effective tax rates that are paid in communities like this, but communities like East New York and Brownsville, the effective tax rates are significantly higher in communities like this than they are in Park Slope, that they are on the Upper East Side.
Yeah.
And so, you know, one of the things that we're advocating for, like, as our next step in our work around the tax lien sale and taxes, because the reason the tax lien sale disproportionately impacts Black and brown communities is because of this disparity in the effective tax rates. And so, you know, the thing is if the folks in Park Slope were taxed at the same effective rate as folks in Brownsville, we could afford everything, right?
Right.
But the other thing is that's not going to happen. What you're going to do is tax the folks at Park Slope a little more, even out those effective tax rates, and then they come down in communities where you have longer working class homeowners. And so one of the ways we see this is actually, one is a properly functioning, non-regressive property taxation system. The second is be more careful about those other abatements that you give out to for-profit developers that rent $5,000 apartments and provide units affordable to household that they call affordable to households making $140,000. You know, and so you know, that's kind of like how we're thinking about it. Now, if you know an interesting thing that your question brings up is that some of like the philosophical backgrounds of CLTs are grounded in the idea of a land tax, a land value tax, where basically, you know, as the value grows, the government basically continually captures most of that, because this is, you know, in most cases, land value is not generated by the person who owns the land, right? It's generated by the community. It's a socially created thing, right?
Yeah.
Value is social. And so if you like basically were to, you know, tax that land at what it should be, to keep it affordable, that would generate enough revenue to, you know, do all sorts of things. Now, that's not going to happen here. But you know, what we're pushing for is really, you know, dealing with a tax system that needs to be reformed, thinking about what subsidies we do. And I think like the other thing that we just have to be realistic about is even if CLTs grow astronomically, they're probably never going to be enough of them to really drain on the tax base. And you know, if you think about the social costs of housing instability, right? Just by providing permanently affordable housing, we may very well be providing more public benefit than we're receiving in a tax break by ensuring that working folks actually have stable housing, don't have to, you know, go into shelter systems that, you know, I mean, that's the other thing we've seen is that like as, you know, more affordable housing is built at higher levels, you know, not as affordable as it used to be, our shelter system is growing. And right, and so, you know, we have $1 billion plus industry in just keeping people from having homes, right? And so, yeah, so I don't know if that's a satisfactory answer, but I mean, I think that's kind of, you know, what we're thinking about is public benefit, fair taxation, be more judicious with the subsidies you give to entities that are really just trying to make lots of money.
A similar question as to that, thank you. So tied to taxes are obviously your assessment values, which is like the actual valuation. And considering that you guys are putting in money for repairs and rebuilding these buildings, which is awesome, are you seeing ramifications in the assessment values of your land? And in turn, I feel like that, as we were talking about earlier, can be a trigger for gentrification in that speculative assessment, just starting with, you know, additional resource and revenue coming.
Yeah.
Is that something you've seen
So,
in your practice?
you know, we have not seen it ourselves. You know, there is some, and I mean, I think this is a bigger conundrum about dealing with neighborhoods that have been disinvested in and then they experience investment, is, you know, the studies that have been done of CLTs and the effect on neighboring property values have only been done in like small markets, mostly single family homes. And they show like a modest increase in prices in neighborhoods where CLTs exist, but it's literally at the level of like if you're within 100 yards of a CLT, you'll experience a 1% or a 1.5% increase in your value. But yeah, no, I mean, that's, you know, we're trying to stem gentrification that is kind of already creeping our way. And so we're less concerned about the fact that, you know, if we have a handful of buildings that are permanently affordable, that raising the prices than we are about, you know, if you look at a map of some, you know, Brooklyn, gentrification started at the East River and now it's basically at us, you know, like it's pointing, because, you know, Brownsville and East New York are like some of the most affordable neighborhoods remaining in Brooklyn, in terms of property values anyway.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
How do you feel about the current administration with the mayor responding to CLTs expanding?
Yeah, so I think we're hopeful. I mean, I think that's how I would say it. I mean, you know, elected officials are elected officials, and they have to deal with many, many constituencies and a complex set of problems, and lots of opportunities. But I mean, we're more hopeful than we were the last administration because we were, you know, most of the legislation that we were advocating around, you know, the former mayor vetoed it all. And so, including getting rid of the lien sale with a more equitable replacement system. Fortunately, you know, that veto was overridden, but, you know, we're hopeful, but we're still, you know, they're just really getting started, and so we're really just trying to see what's happening and what is possible, but we're going to try to do whatever we can to grow our footprint as a movement, but also as an organization and see what we can do to kind of have a fair, more equitable city.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
How do we contact you?
I have cards.
I have one.
Is that good?
Yeah.
And also, I mean, Jolie can distribute my information to everyone.
I'll send out that list that everybody asked for. I'll make sure to hit it in your inbox.
Thank you. Gotcha. And I'll forward it to the board, so.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
There you go.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Have you witnessed of the CLTs, I guess you said there are 20 or so in the city? Have you, do you know of any of them that have,
Thank you.
in their existence to date, felt any pressure from encroaching marketplace?
I'm sorry.
So they're who they are, they become their CLT, that's a fixed thing on that piece of of land, right? As the rest of the evolution of the city marketplace and market price moves to them, what kind of linchpin pressure does that create for the, do you guys have any data on the existing CLTs that are either, you know, like, is it a thing, is there pressure or is so far not to date?
Pressure in the sense on like pushing up property value?
Well, it's not gonna push up the property
Yeah,
value
that's-
because that's a fixed thing, but the again, this relates to services and things. So, you know, as they are either engulfed or, you know, brought into the larger animal that is the marketplace, is there an adverse effect in any way because that's a non-flexible thing, that's what you've described as the thing that's trying to stay fixed for a really long period of time.
Right.
So everything else around that entity is a very fluid, ever-changing thing. My question is there any, have you guys gotten any data on how those two things relate to each other?
No, not
Not yet.
really.
Okay,
Um,
I'm just curious.
Is it safe to say that because CLTs are, because there aren't that many, that they're not a threat to anyone at this point?
That's a great,
I think that
um,
that's
yeah.
why,
that's what I'm kind
that,
of
okay,
leaning
that's,
towards.
I don't, like, I personally feel like because of supply and demand and it's just a matter of how
Yeah.
much money do you have,
Right,
that one building here with 20 tenants or so is not going to make.
right, it's not raising a whole bunch of hairs
Yeah, but if
necessarily.
it was on every other block, then
Yeah.
it would be a problem.
so, I mean, I think,
Thank you, you worded that better than I.
yeah.
I know what you're doing.
I mean, at this moment, there is, there's not too much of that. I mean, there are some, so maybe, you know, what we would call kind of like the traditional affordable housing developers, some CDCs, are not, you know, some of them are a little curious or maybe a little less, maybe that's too kind, maybe they're a little skeptical of what we're trying to do.
Right.
So there's some pushback there. I feel like when we push for policies that prioritize CLTs, that we have gotten, you know, so there was legislation introduced in the last session that basically, you know, we were asking CLTs to be prioritized in public land disposition because unlike other affordable housing developers, we most likely will not like flip the property in 40 years or 30
Yeah.
years.
But you could.
Not with our board structure and the ground lease, it becomes very, very complicated. To unravel a CLT is pretty hard unless it just goes bankrupt. So as long as you're financially viable, it would be enormously difficult with like the 3 different groups of people on the board to really kind of dissolve it in addition to the terms of the ground
So
lease.
it's not as open to, say, corruption or somebody.
I imagine it could be really corrupt. No, I mean, it just, you know, the organization's run by humans, so I feel like you could have a CLT acting in bad faith, like doing not good things. But in the sense of, you know, kind of dissolving just to dissolve, it would be a very legally complicated thing and you'd probably violate numerous like criminal laws and be, you know,
Cause I'm also thinking of like, you know, in not too recent years coming, we've got massive, we're dealing with like water runoff, that the city is a massive issue for the city. We're dealing with, we're about to get a new train line from, you know,
Yep.
all the way down there, going to all the way up there. There's another extension coming in from the LIDLR going all the way up into, so these mechanisms, to your point, are going to drastically impact and affect people's movement and what land value looks like in response to those things that are just around the corner.
Right, and again, you know, the IBX is something that we're facing in East New York, it goes right through the junction, and so, you know, again, that's all part of, you know, our thinking is like, we see all these things on the horizon that are going to drive up land values and make it even harder to stay.
Yes.
So what can we do, you know, well, one, we can own some land, but, you know, the other piece of it is really our policy platform, so like the lien sale, which, you know, encourages a lot of speculation, deed theft schemes, things like that. We pushed on that not so much because we thought somehow we'd get land out of it, but because our members were like, hey, people are losing their homes and we're an anti-displacement organization, right? And so, but in, you know, what has happened is, you know, the legislation, kind of the new system of debt collection will actually be a land bank, which will take tax foreclosed properties and be able to hold them and, you know, develop programs to work with owners to stay in their homes, but also be a pool of property that's managed that can then be let in certain places to, you know, CLTs. I mean, again, that is all going to be formed, but the idea is you also have this vehicle to kind of hold certain properties to put them to kind of productive use and provide affordable housing and things like that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Wow.
You're good.
Did a lot.
You're good. This is good.
This
This
is
is good.
this is great.
Four.
Are we up to
This is me, putting in work on the side.
February minutes?
You know it from my community always.
Oh, the update that I was trying to get
It's
on.
right over here.
We're doing really quick. Has you guys had a chance to take a look at the housing?
Thank you all again.
Thank you so much. So this was the city. Here's the affordable complex, something else. I'm in the wrong place. And he was from the where's the business card? Just make sure he was, and I put it, he was here. Just
It's the new, East New York.
East New York.
Yes, so.
Oh, because in the email.
Yeah, so I have to contact Elise first. Elise is the one, New York County is the organization that oversees all of these CLTs.
Fine, they're still recording, so. Okay, I'll this. Thank you, and thank you, Sam, thank you. Very well, thank you.
I got midterms, I got
Good night.
I love you back.
I'll see you next month. I'll be here.
I can we, how do we find you? I don't know how to find, are you on the thread or something? I'll talk to my, okay,
I can pass on.
please, cause I have questions for
Okay.
you.
Yeah, reach out.
Alright, for everyone,
I just wanna ask a question. That presentation,
it should have said, it's the second one.
okay,
But there was supposed to be someone else who's supposed to be with him. So we're going to amend the agenda to say presentation from East New York Community, not from New Economy Project. Because they were going to be working together. So
that's gonna be amended.
for that. The next thing that I wanted to do was an update. We're gonna jump around, so you can give me a chance. If we could take a look at the housing, my meeting notes from last month. If it looks all right to you guys, we can vote on that. And then that'll give me time to do like it's good tonight. You pushed it away like it was good
No, my
tonight.
hat is on the floor. It's been there the whole time. I'm like, I can't bang my head to get it. Thank you.
Before we continue this meeting, I'm sorry, I have to say one thing.
Yes.
Because I just wanna throw back to last year, Anthony Gay wanted to do a CLT here in Crown Heights. But we protested him out of the community. So much so that he's left New York. But this is exactly what he wanted to do here. And we shut it down.
Who shut it down, the community board?
Yes. So I just wanna throw that out there, that he was ahead of the game, and I brought them here and because of that. He was doing really dope work. So I just.
He's no longer at Evansville?
That was the Feast.
Yes.
Feast organization. Yes.
So why?
He wanted to do this. He was working with New Economy.
Oh, wow.
And he left? Okay,
Because
remember we're recording.
Yes.
Sorry about that.
Have a great night.
Sorry.
I'll talk to you later.
Where, New Economy was in here. That was.
Yes.
That was,
No.
he was working with them, but they were supposed to present tonight with him, but it was, tonight, the presentation we just had was from East New York
Will New
CLT.
Economy present
And
another
that's what I
time?
was trying to understand. She's saying a couple of months, like last year, that he wanted to do that.
No, that was this
That's
person.
new economy, new economy.
I'm a little confused now. You omitted it.
I emailed it to everyone.
But there was a change. so
There was a
that-
change.
that accounts for the
Yes.
change.
Oh, the new, instead of new economy project, we had East New York community, because they were both in the email.
I didn't print it. That's when it,
Okay.
so it's probably in my email, but I didn't print it.
Alright, if you all could take a look at the minutes and just if you have any questions, and then I'll run to the update that we had regarding Prospect Park resident.
Okay, yeah, I looked at them earlier too.
Oh, yeah.
Parks and Estates.
It's right by the hospital.
Yeah, state. Is that-
But there's another building that's like that, no, because I think it's took over the parking lot from the downstate.
Okay, so are we voting to accept the February meetings?
I second.
Second, okay, approved by common consent?
Yes.
Thank you. Who seconded?
Oh, no, they're not affordable.
Here, look at the names. You can read
No,
this
they're
94,
too
so
bad.
anything under 94, you're not even considered
Okay,
looking, consider
the
that.
next thing that I'd like to discuss is that the board did receive a response from, response regarding the Prospect Park residential development, the RFP,
Wait, the one on,
Flatbush,
Flatbush
Flatbush
by the
and,
station.
Empire.
oh, really? Oh,
Yeah,
I'm,
they did receive
did they
respond, and if I could read what I have, I'm sorry. Okay, they said, thank you for your letter regarding the Prospect Park residential development RFP, please see your responses to your questions below. So one of the questions was on page 7 of the RFP outlines on a map which portion lot 37 will be retained by the city, but there are meets and bounds description of the portion of the lot which is being sold and or leased versus retained. What is the total square footage for each respective portion? And they responded and said the entirety of lot 37 contains approximately 77,610 square feet of land area, most of which is the Prospect Park Station building, platforms and tracks. Of this, it is anticipated that approximately 30,000 square feet will be sold.
oh,
The next question was, we request copies of any engineering and feasibility studies conducted by any city agency or the MTA as to what type of the development can or cannot be supported on the non-retained portion of the lot, given that subway tracks run directly underneath the site as per page 6 of the RFP. Any determinations issued by the MTA as to what construction activities in this location may negatively impact their adjacent facilities on retained land. And they responded and said the requested assessments are in process. MTA will not execute a binding agreement with the developer without such determination. The next question was, what is the current timeline for the project since the submission window is closed? And they said EDC and the MTA are evaluating the RFP responses and are working expeditiously towards a developer designation. Next question, how many responses did the EDC receive? When will the submissions be made available to the public? The relevant committees would like to review the submissions. Their response was submissions are usually not made public during the selection process due to the sensitive information they contain. Yeah. Next question, what are the expectations for the project with the mayoral change? Their response was the project continues to advance. EDC and MTA are striving to accomplish the project goals outlined in the RFP, including delivering high-quality housing and a vibrant public presence. Last question was, what are the next steps for the EDC in the process? How long will it take to select the winner of the RFP? The response was EDC and the MTA are evaluating the RFP responses and are working expeditiously towards a developer designation.
Right?
So
it sounded a little
basically
GPT.
everything and nothing.
Yeah.
sure that the board will continue to press them for,
Can
More
you read a
answers.
copy of that?
I will ask Dante.
To
Because
send
this
it
wasn't
out.
sent, yes, this was sent to just a few people, I'm not sure if it's.
Suki got it, so we'll probably.
Did they give any sort of timeline?
No, they just.
Of the work? I mean,
There's no
Expedition.
timeline, there's
for
no.
the development, there's not like a
There's nothing.
5 to 10 years or.
No, but as soon as you blink, there'll be a building there.
Right.
That's what'll happen.
Right.
So that was the third item on the agenda.
Yeah, Prospect Park doesn't know anything about that either.
The next thing, the BS, I'm sorry, I have to go to my phone.
I mean, whatever they put on it though, that will definitely, it will be limited by size because that is absolutely within the park, air rights. It's right across the street, so there's no way that the park that will control the height of whatever is a developer's trying to do.
Who knows them?
Anything between, like, I live on Ocean right there, and anything towards us from Washington and over, you've got Medgar Evers owns a big portion of that, and then you've got the park. And you can't build anything like those big buildings that you see on, what is that small street where the Sonic
Lincoln?
is? No, past Lincoln, like where the
Sullivan?
like that's the kind of the stop for anything over like
That's
you know
still pretty
15
tall.
because
Like
the
one
park's
Sullivan
air
is-
rights, you can't build, you can't it's locked. You can't, it's not like the mayor can't negotiate it. It's basically like they can't go over because if you block, if any building blocks the light that is currently shining on the park, it's a no-fly zone.
Is it over 15? I don't know about that.
Over 15, I didn't think it would be that much.
The 15 isn't
Oh.
I'm just using, but
Because
I
most of
know that
Ocean is
because I've spoken to I've gone to some meetings inside the park zone, you know, is that you can't, cause I'm on there's a what is that? There's a NYCHA building, a big one, the Loden on Sullivan and whatever that cross street is,
Yes.
right across the street from Medgar Evers. And
right behind
they,
the park.
right, and exactly.
You mean
and-
Ebbets Field?
Yeah,
No,
well,
but
the,
it's across from it.
it's across from it, yeah, it's across from it.
Evansville is in NYCHA.
So,
No.
no, the building that's on that block, that it's called the Loden, that is NYCHA, and I was on the list for that
Loaded
building.
is NYCHA building?
Loaded
is.
That new development is in NYCHA?
No, that's
No.
not Loden, you know, the one.
It's
Loaded is
Connect
not-
Housing.
What's the big one next to Loden is 155, is that right?
I don't know, but it is.
Loaded is the
Denver.
new development that
It's
just
on
opened up
Connect
on
Housing.
Franklin.
So next to it is
Crown
a
and
huge
Montgomery.
one, I
That's
have it on
another
my
one.
phone, it's
But
a huge one, it's
I-
bigger than the Loden, and that is through
It's
Housing
lower.
Connect.
Yes,
That
it is. I checked
Right.
today.
That is
He's
through Housing
absolutely
Connect.
right. And starting income is
No.
94,000. I was telling you,
Yes.
that
Yes.
building on Bedford and Sullivan is the building I was referring to. He's
Oh, I know
absolutely
you're
correct.
Are you talking about
With the
Loaded?
Chipotle and
Or
the.
Lidl.
No, that's a
Yeah.
that's a totally different thing than what he's talking about.
That is
Franklin.
Bedford. No, I don't
No,
mean
that's
Franklin.
Bedford and
This is
Yeah.
Bedford I'm talking about.
But that building
He's talking about-
is Bedford and Sullivan.
Yeah.
He's talking about a
Franklin.
totally different, Franklin and
And
Montgomery.
Correct.
Okay, but that building I'm talking
That's
about
not-
is on Housing Connect.
Correct.
Maybe
That
they
doesn't
both
make it
are.
NYCHA.
No, I speak out of turn, I
Yeah.
was just corrected. It's not NYCHA,
Yeah,
but
it's
it
not
is
NYCHA.
Housing Connect, I apologize.
I just saw it in hers too.
Is not
Yeah.
NYCHA.
Next item on the
No, I'm
agenda
good.
is the BSA Affordable Housing Fast Track Rulemaking. I'm not sure if you all received the email.
What is it?
Excuse me, BSA Affordable Housing Fast Track Rulemaking. That was,
There's a meeting coming for that, right?
there is a meeting,
They had a date and then they changed it.
it's April 1st, I believe. I'm sorry, I pressed something and we lost it. I believe that Dante had sent, oh, here it goes. Sorry. Okay, The BSA, the Board of Standards and Appeals,
Right.
is proposing to modify its rules of practice and procedures to codify the board's process for implementing the recent enacted charter, which is the Fast Track Affordable Housing Action Projects, as well as updating the board's rules to incorporate relevant provisions of the zoning resolution as modified by the recent City of Yes Economic Opportunity and Housing Opportunity text amendments in the zoning resolution. There's gonna be a hearing, BSA will hold a public hearing on the proposed rule at 10 a.m. on April 1st at 253 Broadway, second floor, New York. The hearing will be a hybrid hearing, a remote Zoom webinar by dialing the numbers are here. I believe we all received the email, but just letting you know, and you can comment on the proposal through their website, through email, through mail, or speaking at the hearing. The deadline for written comments is Tuesday, March 31st. Comments submitted to the website or email must be received no later than the date, and comments submitted by mail must be postmarked no later than that date, March 31st. What authorizes BSA to make this rule? Section 1043 of the New York City Charter authorizes each city agency to adopt the rules necessary to carry out the powers and duties delegated by its law. Section 192E of the New York City Charter authorizes BSA to adopt rules governing environmental reviews. This, like I said, I'm not sure if anyone has had a chance to read the whole thing. It's about 8 pages. What they're changing, in essence, is, I'm so sorry for my eyes.
I'll see you guys next month.
Thank you very much. I'm not sure if we want to send something to the board and ask them to comment on our behalf, or if anyone's gonna be able to attend the meeting, but we should definitely look at this, and if anything, we can.
I'm gonna try and go to it and speak, but I can't say 100%, but I'm gonna try. If anybody else wants to go.
Dante sent this on the
Because sometimes you
26th.
can write letters to these
Yes,
things.
it's
right?
due
Just
by the
someone-
31st,
It
March
said you can
31st.
also write, there's like a internet
An email.
form that you can
Yeah.
So just wanted to mention that, that there are 2 more things that we will go through. Police has been able to secure Sia Weaver, I think you saw my email, and, before we have her come to the board and come see our great community, it would be nice to have some, questions for her. I don't know if anyone's has had a chance to think of any questions, or if we should, on the back end, do this by email, cause coming up with it right now might be a bit,
The next meeting, she's gonna.
we're hoping for in the next couple of months. to
Okay.
have her.
Everybody knows who Sia Weaver is, right?
Well,
I think
she
she's
said
in the
whenever
email.
you are ready to invite her, she will come. He says if it's the next meeting, let her know, she'll be here.
Oh, great.
She'll be here, but we need,
You should
Yes,
do
we
it.
have.
But you're right, when you
Give her a
said,
question.
please give her the questions, so she'll
we
be
need,
prepared for it.
she asked that we give her the questions
Yeah.
before,
And
because
she's
Sure.
CC'd on the email.
So she
right?
can
No, she's not
prepare.
copied on
she's
the
not-
email, she's not copied on
I think I may not have gotten this email.
Yep, did you?
I
No?
don't think I got it.
Okay, so
Yeah.
did you get, I sent the agenda last week.
Let me check.
Okay,
You're on
that's
the one that came
Maybe
on
went
the
to my
fifth.
spam or
Hopefully
something.
it's the right email. But if we
Yeah.
can come
Okay.
together and
Okay.
talk through that, either through
You're on it.
email, because I know that
Maybe
time
went to my
is,
spam or something.
Yeah, prepare some good questions.
we need to come up with some questions so that we can invite her and ask the other members of the board and the other committees to come and fill some of these seats up.
Oh, you're gonna have a lot of people, because, I'm already informing them, they just wanna know when.
But my thing is that I don't know if this is the right forum here,
I see.
because
Oh, we might need a bigger space.
we need a bigger space, and that's why I felt that maybe doing it on Zoom, where it would be open to more of the community as opposed to not to say that I'm embarrassed by our surroundings, but
No,
Do you
I
feel
think
like you
just do
wanna-
it at the school. Just have it at the school.
if
You
you
gotta
guys
ask permission.
We would have to ask permission but if we're going to do this, we have to do it right.
Right.
That's my only
Correct,
thing. If we're
yeah.
gonna do it, we have to do it right. Where other committees are able to come, other members of the board, as well as then definitely, of course, the community. I don't wanna have 10 people at a meeting asking 3 questions. 'Cause
Yeah.
Or vice versa, just asking a ton of questions.
a ton of
I think-
questions
I think-
that aren't centralized to
Correct,
help me.
correct. So I think I think perhaps if you create a timeline or a deadline to submit questions,
Okay.
and then you can use your brilliant mind and whoever you choose to be the committee to break down those questions to what are the critical questions. And then she has a very decisive, clear thing, and she doesn't feel like she's being,
Yes.
a slam.
It would be nice to have a few
Not that we ever
general,
do
a
that.
few
No.
general
You
questions.
don't?
Would be nice to have a few people like be able to,
I think that if we have a list and have one person ask the questions, because sometimes people ramble on with their questions, and if we have the
Concise.
list of questions, we keep, I just wanna keep it focused.
Yeah,
And I
we
don't
wanna
want it to be
discuss.
how when other representatives come where they're being attacked. These are the
Right.
questions, please
Right.
answer.
That's very important to say.
I want,
Creating an environment that we, because the
Thank
more we get, the more we will get.
That's friendly, yes.
exactly.
Well said.
have some snacks.
I'm all for the snacks. Yeah, oh, let's not start, okay, so that, we'll do that through email and we'll discuss that further and I will think of a timeline. New business, does anyone have any new business? That we'd
I
like
have
to-
a new business.
Yes,
No, I just wished you all would elect your second chair,
me too, me too,
so if you're late like
Me
today,
too.
then somebody can,
me too.
so I'm just suggesting.
Would you like to join the committee?
I don't think I can.
I second that.
Okay. Me too,
I'm already on the year lip, so I don't think.
me too.
But they don't meet, can you not be in more than one committee?
I'm not sure, but I
I
can
think you
ask.
can. But since you're so concerned about second chair,
I
It's
would
just,
love
it's
to
just a
do
nice
it.
thing to
We
have.
had the discussion last week and we haven't, last month, and haven't been able to do that. New business, it's not new business, but thank you that, second, that was actually, I took it off the,
It just
the
helps
agenda.
things keep going.
it would, it actually would.
If mine is late or can't make
Trust me,
it.
I know, second chair, to vote for a second chair in our, yes, trust me, I would love, I would love that. Second, okay. The
Anybody
only-
wanna do it? Can you just call it?
We tried that, we're working on it, we'll work on it some more. The last.
Is that part of the bylaws that you can, or I'm only asking.
I have
You
to
know,
ask,
because they have bylaws, right?
yes, I have
They
to
have
ask, I don't know if I have
bylaws,
to,
so
if
maybe
we
that fits
have,
it.
yeah, I don't know if we have to, or if it's a suggestion. If it's a part of the bylaws, then we'll have to vote someone in, and I will, trust me, I'm not trying to be
You
late.
have to be a
but-
member on the board in order to, oh wait, this is the second?
Yes,
Oh no, you don't have to be a member.
I think you do,
Oh.
I think you might.
and this is why we'll discuss it, and
That's
we'll
right,
put it
so
under
we'll-
new business, as
Correct.
you suggested.
Absolutely.
Thank you. The only other form of new
You
business that
have
I
to be a
would like
member, I'm sorry,
to-
you're right, you do have to be a member.
You do have to be a member, okay. The only other second new business that I'd like to discuss is real quick. Tomorrow night, Eurolip is going to have a presentation from 1550 Bedford Avenue. I spoke, Suki and I were on with the developers. Suki and I were on a call with the developers last week, I don't remember what day, I just know it was last week. They are proposing 200, how many units? 256 units, I believe. That is on the corner of Eastern Parkway and Bedford.
Oh, this is
Where
the
the old
old
gas
Hotel.
station.
This is the old hotel that was they were
It
trying
was
to sell
supposed to be a hotel, yeah, and
Yes,
then
but
it
they
had
are
a lot of
now
problems.
going to build something that includes affordable housing, of which they said 77 units will be MIH and one of
MIH what?
MIH,
Choice 3?
I don't remember, I don't have
my notes in front of me, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
But
So it's not a
77
hotel.
no, it's going to be,
That's what they're proposing, they're
If we upzone
proposing,
it,
right?
they're going to Eula because they would like to upzone. They would like to change the zone.
so we all should
Because it's not, currently
We
for
need to
now,
go
it is
up to
not
the
zoned.
higher.
And like it's just mandatory inclusion.
It's
Yes.
zoned as a hotel.
It's zoned as a hotel, but it is not zoned for
an apartment.
apartment building.
For
So they're
residential
looking to zone it as for apartments. So that's 1550 Bedford, the corner of Nostrand,
No,
sorry, the
Bedford.
corner of Bedford and Eastern
And
Parkway.
Eastern Parkway, correct.
And 77 of their units, they are saying would like to be affordable housing. Dante pushed on the call for them to maybe do it more to be the most. Cause they're saying that this unit will have the most affordable housing of any of the ones that they've built. So we're pushing for maybe 80 units as opposed to
I see,
77.
I see.
The developer,
The developers, yeah, so the
Who is the
developers will be
developer?
there tomorrow.
Right.
So
Okay.
tomorrow night, if you can make it to the meeting, anyone online,
Yes, yes.
please do so.
Who's the developer? I'm so sorry.
Oh, that's
Okay, you can tell me
I
tomorrow.
will tell you, I'll
That's
tell
here?
you afterwards, it's tonight, yes,
It's
tomorrow
here?
night,
Tomorrow night.
tomorrow night at the Eula committee.
Okay.
And then they have to also consider it was a gas station, so they have to do an environmental.
They did that. They started working. The Major
you-
Owens Health and Wellness is diagonally across. They started. They
If you
started
walk
building.
past it, it's already covered up in concrete.
Absolutely. They
If you
started
look
building.
inside, yeah, it's covered,
They
yeah.
started,
The
not
work
this new
has-
development, the previous development that ran out of money.
They did some work on it
Previous
recently
things
too,
move-
like a month or two
They
ago.
were,
in this
they had to cut down those
neighborhood when
trees
they
and
want to.
bushes and stuff. I
Yeah.
saw them in there.
It was like a
When they
big
want to.
dumping
They want
ground
to
in
now.
there,
Yeah,
because it's
all of a
been
sudden,
vacant.
things move quickly, you know, when
When you got money.
when you got money, exactly.
I told the
So-
city to buy it. I did tell the
With
city
that-
that they should buy it.
Right.
They said it doesn't work that quickly in government. That's what I was told.
Yeah. With that, is there anything else? If not, I'd like to adjourn.
I'll second.
Thank
I've got you, I've got you. I've got your back,
Okay,
hold back.
adjourned at 8:57.
Yeah.
I would like to thank everyone and
I've gotta call my sister, I told her to call her at 9.
You're welcome, my chair slash treasurer.
Y'all have a great night.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Drew. So we'll talk online. Thank you, everyone.
Yes, yes.
Oh, Kelvin is tired. I'm just so.
Or vice versa.
But yeah, y'all know a lot of our neighbors went over to Canada to work on.
Right, we gotta